this meeting to order. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay.
Karen, could you do the roll call? Commissioner Anger? Here. Commissioner Blanes?
Here.
Commissioner Kalani?
Here.
Commissioner McNeil?
Yep.
Commissioner Soto?
Here.
All present.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second. Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Agenda's approved. Do we have any public comment before we start the agenda? Okay, then we'll go right into our agenda. We're going to be starting with presentations. We have awards, and thank you both for coming. So our first award is an appreciation to Dean Phillips, who has kept us on the legal straight and narrow for 7 years. And we really appreciate all the work. And we'd be so fortunate if we can continue having such a good legal presentation from this point on.
Don't be a stranger.
All right. From Kenneth Humberston, who was on the CRW board for 3.5 years, came on in a time of turbulence and helped bring everything back to where it should be. And he's done an excellent job. Unfortunately, we lost him, but our loss is the county's gain because he's now a county commissioner. And the only problem is that because he was such a dedicated board member, he was on all these committees, and now we have to take over and be on all those committees. So that was the only problem.
Well, that's what it was.
So, Kenneth.
Good luck, thank you.
Thank you much.
Thank you for your help.
George served every one of you.
Thank you very much.
What, no speech?
That will go in my office.
Thank you. Okay, and the next thing on our agenda is the audit presentation by Amy Fleming from Moss Adams.
Good evening. Nice to meet you all. Julie doesn't know anyone typically be sitting here in this spot, but she is traveling out and about like she normally is. So I'm here to present for you guys tonight, and I've worked on your audit for the past several years as well, alongside Julie, so very familiar with everything that's been going on from you guys. So we'll just kind of run through our slide deck, and if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. Oh, I can do it. So our agenda for tonight, we'll go through our auditor's report, do our required communications with you guys, the board, talk about internal control communications, and then just a couple other matters at the back of the slide deck as well. So our auditor's reports, I believe you guys have had a chance to look at. You had a clean report as usual on your financial statements. That's exactly what you want to see. Every year when that's not changing, that's a good thing. And then on your Oregon minimum standards report, we also had no findings, so everything we tested in there was as it should have been. So these next couple slides just go through some of our required communications with you guys as those charged with governance. You would have also seen these in the letter that we issued to you guys, and so this is just kind of a recap of what was in there. Our responsibility as your auditors under generally accepted auditing standards is to express our opinion on your guys' financial statements, noting that they are materially stated and that there's nothing that we're aware of that should be changed for them to be in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, so no issues there. Our plan, scope, and timing, if there was any changes to that from what was communicated to you guys before the audit was started, we would let you guys know about that, but no changes there. We also like to point out that significant accounting policies are in note 2 of the financial statements, and if there was any changes to those policies or any new significant policies that were implemented during the year, we would make you aware of that, but there were no changes that we think you need to be aware of in the current year. Here we list the 4 kind of bigger accounting estimates, and they're all very typical for your guys' industry, nothing in here that should be surprising. So when we talk about estimates, these are numbers that may not be exact at any given point in time. There's some assumptions that are built into them. So unbilled revenue is just the revenue that's been incurred from the time of the final billing of the year until year end. So there's it's sitting with an accounts receivable balance there. Your allowance for doubtful accounts, just an estimate of any balances that are due from customers that potentially might not be collected. Recovery period for cost of plant, this is typically driven by regulatory years and drives your depreciation expense, so really how your plant is being depreciated. And the amounts that you're seeing coming out of there, another estimate. And then just the pension related assets and deferrals, there's an actuary study performed there. But a lot of assumptions go into that study, and so it's always just kind of a bigger estimate sitting on the balance sheet.
Question?
Yes.
So what is the usual rate of depreciation for a treatment plant? 50 years, 75 years?
So it depends on kind of what assets you're talking about within
Sure.
the plant. I would have to look at your guys'
Yeah,
statements.
it wouldn't necessarily be one number, and I believe that we have for plant and all of the components of it,
Okay.
50 to 75 years.
Yeah, okay. I just,
Yeah.
order of magnitude trying to.
So we'll go through, we had no audit adjustments this year that were booked as a result of our audit. We had 2 past audit adjustments, so those are adjustments that we bring to management attention, and it's determined if they're immaterial to the financial statements. One was just an invoice that came in after year end that applied to fiscal year 16 that was not recorded, and then some accrued interest. Both the materials and financial statements, we had no issues with the fact that these were passed on, and they'll flow through in the next year, so no issues noted there. If we had any disagreements with management, and that kind of relates to the application of accounting principles and things of that nature, we would communicate those to you, but there's none to note. No consultation with other accountants. That would be if management were to go out and work with another CPA to kind of determine if they thought that something would bring a clean opinion without consulting with us, then we would bring that to your attention, but nothing to report there, and no difficulties were encountered in performing an audit. Nothing too exciting to report there. Internal control communications, if we had noted any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, we would communicate those with you guys. We do look at internal controls during the audit process, just as a basis of kind of designing our audit procedures. We don't actually define the controls that are in place, but if we were to note any issues, we would communicate those with you guys. Nothing to report this year, and anything that was noted last year, which I don't believe there was anything of significance as well, that's all been resolved. So clean internal controls as well. And that is all I have from a formal presentation standpoint. I open up to any questions.
Questions? Okay. So our first action item is related to this. It's acknowledgement of receipt of the audited financial statement for fiscal year 2016. There's no presentation involved with that, Carol, right?
No, it's just a
Just go
motion.
ahead. So, I just need a motion for action item number 1. Does anybody want to move the acknowledgement of receipt?
All right, I move to acknowledge the receipt of fiscal year 2016 comprehensive annual financial reporting ending June 30, 2016.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great, and accepted. So we're on to the next action item in our agenda, which is Resolution 07-2017, appointments to Budget Committee for the biennium 2017-2019. Carol, did you? Thank you very much.
Yes, we have 3 openings on the budget committee this year. These are for 4-year terms because that coincides with the requirements for the biennial budget. And we have 2 of those people in the audience tonight. So Mr. Gary Kerr has applied to continue on the budget committee, and we have Aaron Blue, who has also applied to be on the budget committee. The 3rd person that applied has not, I've been in communication with her, I've sent communication to her and have not heard back. So at this point, we have an option of appointing all 3, or if the board would like to, you could appoint the 2, and we could revisit this at the March meeting. And that's entirely up to the board. We can appoint all 3 and continue to reach out.
Okay, so this third person, they are really serious about it because you said she didn't communicate back?
Well, we received an application
Okay.
via the website,
Okay.
but I have not been, I've reached out but have not gotten responses back from her.
So I would suggest we appoint the two, and then
Okay.
in March, if we get a completed application,
Yeah.
then we can appoint.
I think that's a good idea. Okay, so, does somebody want to make a motion for the appointment of the two people that are here?
I will. I move that the CRW Board adopt Resolution 07-2017 appointing the Budget Committee citizens, the two citizen members for the biennium 2017-2019.
Second.
Okay, all in
Can
favor?
I?
Yes, go
So
ahead.
just so that we're abundantly
Yes.
clear, because there is a resolution in the packet, so we're going to strike from that resolution Cheryl French at this point until we're able to confirm.
Oh, that's true, we
Yeah.
have that.
So I just want to, for the record, I just want to be
You're right.
clear what it is we're doing to that
Which the
resolution.
two are, yes.
So that, you're right. So we'll approve the resolution with the, as amended, where it deletes the information associated with Cheryl French at this point.
Okay, you're right. Should we vote again as an
Yeah,
amended?
yeah, I don't think
We haven't
Okay.
voted. Did we get a second?
Yeah, we
Okay,
did.
good, thank you.
Okay, so we voted on it as amended with the two budget committee members that are here. And I would like to say as the chair that I really appreciate you coming onto our budget committee. It really helps us out a lot.
So-
Hopefully you'll find it interesting.
So you actually didn't vote yet?
And we didn't
You had
vote.
a vote-
Oh, we
you had a
didn't vote
No.
to-
moved and you
Moved
had a
and
second,
seconded.
but
No,
no
Well,
vote.
that's right,
voted
because
yet.
you're okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you are now on the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next agenda item is the contract award for Leland Road Waterline Project CIP 145179, and I think Joe's going to give a presentation first before we vote on it.
I have some additional maps to roll up what we already received tonight. For items 3 and 4.
Oh, you're right.
They're a little bigger.
We
than-
also have the contract award for 82nd Avenue Water Abandonment Project, CIP 165204. After the presentation, then we'll take
Thank you, Joe.
we'll take the vote after the presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. The Project Leland Waterline Replacement, shown on the map, extends from the Oregon city limits to our project boundary. We let this project as a two-phase, let me back up. This is a scheduled project within the capital improvements budget for the biennium. It was carried through in the supplemental budget with a little extra added on so that we could do the entire water line to the project boundary. We weren't sure about the budgeting availability in the current marketplace for contractors. So we split this project into two schedules. Schedule A did a portion of the project, Schedule B did the entire project. We analyzed the supplemental budget within the capital improvements program and determined that we were capable of doing the entire project. And so the resolution presented in front of you today is a recommendation for award to the contractor for the Schedule B, which is the entire project. It extends from the Oregon city limits to our project boundary on the south along Leland Road. And we find that the contractor is both responsive and responsible in his bid. And so we have the resolution before you to award that contract to Oregon Underground, which is a local contractor who's done a number of, many projects in the Clackamas County. And we
questions. Two. So, looking at this map, it stops short of the Beaver Creek Bridge. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay. You know how far away from the bridge it is? 500 feet?
Hundreds of feet.
Yeah, okay. And then does it tie to the new City 12 at the top?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
The disposition of the 12 and our existing line within Leland Road inside Oregon city limits is part of the joint engineering study.
Right.
And
That's what I was wondering about. So it's still fed off the master meter that,
correct.
that Myers and Claremont.
This line has seen numerous leaks for anyone who's driven the road. You can see the patches. There's more than a dozen over the last year or so, beyond its useful life.
So will there be any new hydrants in this new line?
There are 2 new hydrants.
Oh, good.
One is placed up by the entrance road to the residents that live along the airstrip.
Oh, yeah.
Which gives them better access. There's another one, there's an existing hydrant at the corner by Noblewood.
Uh-huh.
We added one about midway, and then there's replacing one that is at the end of the line.
Makes a big deal for the homeowner's insurance.
Oh, yeah. We have been talking to the fire district about the ISO ratings and
Yeah.
and all that.
Oh, sure.
Commissioner Saul, go ahead.
And when we award a contract, will you get to see a list of all the people that did?
Yes, that's in
I
your,
couldn't find that in my packet.
that should be attached to the agenda item.
There is this one here.
I saw
These are the
that.
contractors. These are the contractors at the top. And this would be Laurel right here.
I apologize. Things I can't read small print.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't blame you for that.
There were 9 bids received, and we selected the low for Schedule B. Had we selected Schedule A as the viable alternative, it would have been a different contractor, with a different low for Schedule A. There have been no protests to the notice of award.
Any other questions?
So I do have a question. We've got a lot of bidders, which is good. You know, is it just because of the timing of this?
I think so.
Yeah, I do too. Okay. I just wanted to know what you thought.
Any other questions? Okay, so I will entertain a motion to award the contract for the water line project. Anybody want to make that motion?
I will.
Okay.
Got it under here someplace. Good to go. Well, I'm missing my copy. Oh, but where did 3 go?
Oh, item agenda 3.
Yeah. Thank you. It was here. I move to award the South Leland Road Waterline Construction Contract to Oregon Underground Incorporated for the bid amount of $399,251.00 and authorize the general manager to sign the completed contract.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes. So we are, you can go on to the contract award for 82nd Avenue Waterline Ban Project.
Correct. Item agenda 4 is a discussion, is the award of what began as an opportunity project. We were highlighted by ODOT that they intended to pave 82nd Avenue summer of 2017. So, in looking at the various states of our water lines within 82nd Avenue, we decided that it would be a good opportunity to do this work now and reap the benefits of not having to do the amount of surface restoration that is necessary after you have a pavement restoration project like what they're planning to do. If you're familiar with 82nd, it's pretty tore up and in this repair. They are not requiring us to do any kind of grinding and overlay associated with this work. So we have quite a bit of savings in that regard if we were to try to do this at a later date. In this project, we had only one responsive bidder, and that's what's represented here. The bid amount is higher than my estimate. That isn't necessarily bad on them. This is a complicated project with a lot of traffic control. There's some amount of night work, and the bid amount is within the preliminary engineering contingency amount that we had set aside. And so this, together with the Leland project, fits within the supplemental budget assigned to the two projects, and we're willing to accept the single bid.
So nothing from MEI?
Not for this project.
Really? Had enough?
Go ahead.
They did bid on
Questions for Carol. I think this was a project that was in our supplemental budget. Things that went over the estimate price, where we're gonna get that extra money.
We, as Joe said, it's within the contingency, so it is still within the supplemental budget amount.
Are there any other questions?
So a lot of this has already been done on the Audi piece, right? Or are we gonna tear that up again too?
The lines that will be abandoned pass under the Audi overlay that's already been completed.
Mhm.
We did take advantage of that project and do some work there. Because of that overlay, we are not working within the Audi Road constructed area. Okay. We have one service that's near, or well, two services that need to be transferred to the 10-inch line in close proximity, but it's not, we're not gonna have to do the overlay for those.
Any other questions? I would entertain a motion to accept this, go ahead.
I move to award the 82nd Avenue Waterline Abandonment Construction Contract to Emery & Sons Construction Group for the bid amount of $603,450.00, and authorize the general manager to sign the completed contract.
Do I have a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes. Okay.
One last piece of
Sure, go ahead.
information regarding these two projects. Prior to the beginning of the meeting, Karen handed out these data sheets. I just wanted to let you know that it's our intent, once we have a prototype web page put up for projects, in order to post this kind of information on the web page, so that the customers at large can have some additional information and not have any questions once traffic control starts showing up and whatnot.
Sir, is the 82nd one gonna be on trip check? Absolutely, put it on trip check. Get a hold of the gang down at Flanders and have the public affairs group down there get this on trip check. That way they'll see a big red box that pops up when somebody's looking at construction projects, and they get to see where it's at, times and all that kind of stuff.
I had a question about the website. Is that going to be connected to the CRW website as a link to it?
It will be part of the CRW website.
Part of it, okay.
Well,
A little more information. We've gone to advertising or posting these contract documents for distribution to the contractors on our website. And to carry on with that, we want to provide a little more additional information for the public regarding our capital improvements project. But we don't want it to be on the home page project forward. So we want the webpage to stay customer focused. So we're putting a prototype page together that will contain our project information so that people can find it.
Go ahead.
Are arrangements being made to notify the customers either through information in their bills or anything like that, so they know to look at the website once you get it up?
The project descriptions were actually added to the flyer that went in the bills this last, or will be in the bills this next billing cycle. So those are in the newsletter. On 82nd Avenue, we don't intend to do any advance warning to any of the customers because it's a broad base and we're not really directly affecting customers until we do a shutdown. Those customers will be notified directly prior to the shutdown. For the Leland project, we're actually going to be putting up a variable message board a couple weeks ahead of start of construction so that the locals and anyone traveling on the road can know what's coming. And then during construction, the contractor will maintain message boards alerting the public that there's long delays and disturbance to the road. It's a very narrow road. It's going to be one lane in each.
Good, because we outlet over that.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's a set to go around.
there's just no good go around.
Any other questions or comments? We've already passed the 2 resolutions, so.
All right,
we're
thank
all-
you.
Thank you very much. So we're now up to action item number 5, authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with OS Engineering for electrical safety and ARC flash repair. We have
That would be
Dr.
Art
DiLorenzo.
Flash.
Hi. Okay, so just a little bit of background on this. Back in 2015, Sierra W contracted Advanced Power Solutions to do an electrical safety program review. And as part of that process, we asked APS to go out to our pump stations, take a look at our equipment, give us a general idea of the conditions of the electrical systems in our pump stations, and give us a recommendation on how we should proceed with an arc flash program and analysis. So at that point, it was just kind of a little add-on to the scope of work that we asked them to do. It wasn't a full electrical analysis by any means. But the result of that, APS determined that there were a number of code violations, OSHA safety hazards, and potential equipment issues that we had associated with those. And APS recommended that we actually contract out to get a full electrical analysis and power system study done on all of our pump stations. So we sent out an RFQ back in the fall, and we got 3 responses. Through our process, we wound up picking OS Engineering, came to the top of our list. And so the result that they put forward was to do this full, complete inspection of our pump stations, so it should be pretty intensive. And in discussing our goals with power system studies moving forward, it was brought to our attention that we would save significant money if we actually performed the arc flash analysis while they're out in pump stations collecting all the data. So with this project, we actually have it budgeted in our CIP funds already. So it would just be approving the contract of the $110,000 so that we can proceed. And our goal is to get this done before the end of June and get a at least rough idea of numbers that we can put in our budget moving forward as far as system upgrades. And through this process, actually, we should be able to get an idea of ranking as to things that need to be fixed and addressed immediately versus things that we can kind of plan out down the road through a number of years. Any questions?
Yeah, so I assume that any electrical work is done under a permit. I assume all electrical work is inspected. I assume that they're all signed off. So one's got a question What code violations?
We do,
Don't understand that one.
so we do have a list from APS's rough cursory analysis that we can send you if you'd like to review.
Does it cite the code section?
That I'm not sure. It just broadly references the NEC code violations. But through this analysis, it would kind of get to the root of that problem.
Okay, I'd be anxious to know the code sections.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Okay, if not, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the OS engineering contract for a not to exceed amount of $110,000 per fiscal year, and to have the general manager sign the contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, it's approved. Thank you for your presentation. Okay. And before you present, we have just a couple of things that we need to do. Because yours is going to be the informational report.
Yep.
So before we get there, we have the consent agenda, and we have gross payroll and accounts paid and cash position and transfers. And let's go ahead and have a motion first for just those two items. And then, because the water easement is not the standard, could I have a motion just to pass the payroll and cash position transfers? Somebody?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we're on to number 3, which is water easement. I thought we would separate that. Consider acceptance of water line easement granted by Jeffrey C. Crochon on tax lot 00602, map 3, well, there's a number there.
3 South 2 East 4A.
Okay. Bob, did you want to say anything about that? Or-
Well, the description is basically a single service. The Country Village Estates did a development, and as part of that, there was a house at the very end of the cul-de-sac. Right now, they're on the well, and they negotiated with the developer to provide water through that system. We have all the easements for the Country Village Estates. They're actually putting services in now. This was the last piece, was for them to have water, I need a place to put the meter. Since the Country Village Estate is before that, and that's private property, private drive. And for us to have service to a house, we need an easement to put the meter in. So that's basically what this 15 by 15 by 15 easement. So a meter can be installed.
Okay, great.
So you could enter the property.
At the end of the property,
Yep.
because it is at the end of the street. There is no future expansion of that water, or extension of the main.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, can I entertain a motion?
I move that the board accept the water line easement on tax lot 00602, 3 South 2 East, section 4A is described in exhibits A and B, and authorize the general manager to sign the easement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, any, okay.
Opposed?
Passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're now up to informational reports, and we have a backbone update by Adam.
Good evening, Commissioners. Wanted to take you through a brief update of where we are on the backbone projects. Did hand out the presentation, and on the back of that paper clip show was a flow up of the schedule, revised schedule. So the first 3 projects I've listed there, the Butterfield Transmission Main, the Lumpkin Second Reservoir, and the Redland Reservoir number 3. I'm going to go into a little more detail since there's a little more activity on separate slides. But the Springwater Transmission Main project, currently we're in design. We have an alignment selected, and we're dialoguing with the county on the design and the schedule for that work. The schedule has us doing that work early this year, so before the summer season is the goal because of the busyness of the Carver area. Highway 224 intertie, we're set to.
Before you go to that, how far out of spring water is that main gonna go?
So that project runs from Carver Bridge down Springwater Road and then turns south on Patton Road.
It doesn't go across the creek?
No, although we will stub out a stub out of that main in the event that there's any future need down Springwater.
At least get out of the intersection, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be on the east side, not across the creek, but we'll be on
Yeah,
the east side.
not all the way to the bridge, but somewhere in
East
between
of-
the driveway going into the
Park.
and the
Correct.
bridge, yeah.
Yep, yep. Highway 224, we're slotted to start the pre-design mid or early summer this year. We're looking at alignments. We have some properties identified for potential easements. One factor on that, as I've described before, is the Sunrise Corridor, future ODOT work that we're looking at for potential effects on our alignment selection. So.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
Did they ever complete that EIS?
I believe so, the 2009 or 2010.
Something like that.
Was when they did.
It was held up, and I didn't ever see, because without the EIS, you don't know.
Right.
You just don't have any idea where they're going.
There was a study done in 9 and 10, and that's the best available information we have. I've talked to
Right.
ODOT, and that's what they reference.
I mean, I've
There's
seen
not
a couple of
anything
different
more recent, yeah.
sliding around down through there, and that's why I was wondering if the EIS was done yet.
I believe that's a public document, so.
It is,
they have
absolutely
it
is. Yeah,
online.
you can,
Yeah.
you call planning at Flanders down there and get a copy of it,
Mhm.
if it exists.
Any other questions?
Oh, yes, sorry, go ahead.
And pump station unsigned. You say February, March, where is it?
So the February, March date range I give there is just current activity. So we're looking at a potential property with a specific owner at this point in time. It's right near the intersection of Hatton and Grunland roads. There were a couple initial properties we were looking at there, but we're trying to narrow it down to one specific property owner.
Not on the creek side, right?
Not on the creek
The
side.
pump station's not on the creek side,
Hatton.
or it is on the creek side?
No. Clear
Good,
Creek.
thank you.
Clear Creek.
Clear Creek,
Yeah,
yes.
on Hatton Road, no, it's
Yeah.
it's.
On the other side of
Kind
the
of
road.
on, at this point in time, it's near the intersection of Grunland, more on the Grunland side.
Oh, okay, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, always having problem keeping that road there.
Yeah, it's a difficult road.
Can't wait to see it on the news.
And then the Hatton transmission main, which follows the Hatton pump station, we have some alignments identified, but again, is that somewhat dependent on where we end up siting our pump station. We're holding off committing to a specific alignment on that line until we select that. I will say on that, we're considering doing, starting some initial survey activities on Hatton Road to the south, more down, a couple miles south towards our Redland reservoirs. With the idea that if we time that properly, we can start that survey and have a property select pump station kind of tie it in. That way we're not holding up survey of a long transmission main too much. So the Butterfield project, it's our first one on the list. We're substantially complete as of the end of December. As I shared in, I believe it was October at the board meeting, there were some changes associated with that work. Several of those we took as opportunities of the sort. We added some 12-inch water line along the lower segment of Butterfield Lane because we have a good solid property option for the Bradley Road pump station, even though it's going to be on potentially on Butterfield Lane. And we also did quite a bit more reconstruction work on Butterfield Lane, the private road that goes up to the Redland Reservoir site. which added some significant costs to basically make that a more robust road, so that when we go back in there with our reservoir project in another year, it'll hold up to that traffic much better than the private road that was there, which was pretty thin asphalt poured on dirt, basically. That wouldn't stand the test. So as you can see, the cost there, the original backbone budget, which was part of the bonding, was $2.9 million. Our final estimate prior to bid was 2.6. The contract award was just under 1.8 million. And then with all the foreseen changes, with project completion coming up here in another month or two, we're looking at just over 2 million, which is about 13% increase to the overall contract.
So what part of that final number was the acceleration of the Bradley pipe headed towards that pump station?
That was about 55,000.
Okay, just wondering.
Recall.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The 152nd project, we completed the survey out there, including a route down Morning Way to 152nd and down to the highway for transmission main. We're, as you know, we're working with Murray Smith and Associates, our consultant engineer on that project. They've done quite a bit of preliminary design to date. Had a good meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, looking at preliminary layouts for the tank, looking at construction access needs, looking at some other items, tank sizing. We are talking to several of the neighboring property owners for both a potential purchase of property as well as easements. And we do have easements today because of our existing 18-inch line that runs up to the tank site. But we're determining the sufficiency of that easement, if it's wide enough to do what we want to do, adding additional lines to that tank.
I got a question. So you were trying to do the phone when we had that work session on the tank. Did you get all your questions answered about that whole conversation we had about size and all that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question about the size.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay, you were struggling to hear.
Yeah, it was kind of between the jets and whatever
Yeah.
was going over.
So we are we're still in dialogue, trying to wrap.
Commissioner Andrew?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
question.
Are you still receiving some pushback from some of the neighbors up on just a second?
For the most part, the neighborhood response has been favorable, although we're very early in the process. You know, we did hang some signs. We issued letters to about 300 homes in the near vicinity. Late last year. Haven't had a lot of feedback yet, but we will ramp up a community outreach program soon as we get the design a little more further along.
So a question, did we decide on the size of this reservoir? There was a lot of talk.
No, so just as a reminder from the last work session, the board kind of gave some direction. We realized that we needed to find out what Sunrise was thinking as far as there. So we're going to meet with Wade actually Tuesday, and then we're also working on a kind of a draft agreement on what that would look like that we'll include on our February work session. So we'll kind of highlight some of that. So we'll know more for the February.
So we'll loop back and pick that up.
Yeah, we'll loop back, and then the idea is that then we would talk to the board in March about approving an agreement that would have that information.
Sounds good, thank you.
So we're gonna pay for the tank. You're just negotiating a payment for their part.
Yeah, so we would negotiate some sort of agreement where they would pay for their portion.
Right.
And depending on how much they want, we'll help determine what size.
Right.
And then, we'll figure out how we want to do that. But yes, it's kind of our project.
It's our project.
But they
We're
would buy
building it,
in.
right.
They
They're
would
just gonna
buy in
reimburse us for
their part, and it'd be a joint
Yeah.
effort at that point.
So it's a joint ownership for the project?
Yes.
Commissioner Snow?
Are we far enough along yet whether Sunrise has stated that they're gonna go with us all?
So, no, I'll know more next week, so.
Frank?
Is there a possibility of initially going through with a wheeling agreement as opposed to a joint ownership?
A what?
Wheeling
A
agreement.
wheeling agreement. The difficulty and kind of what we talked about at the work session is how soon do you want your money? So a wheeling, it would be more of a, you would incorporate it in your rates type of situation, which frankly, that puts CRW in a position of spending money to build something that they just use when they need it type of thing.
There's no guaranteed return.
Yeah, and you don't know. So I think at least the feedback that I received from the board at the work session was try to get the money up front, or as upfront as you can. So that was kind of the approach that we're taking.
Okay, I guess you can continue.
Okay, so with our current schedule, we're looking at a design completion in the fall, October, and then bidding in the winter, and then a March 2018 construction start. That is about 5 months further out than we initially estimated for schedule, but given the winter conditions, weather-wise, to move a lot of dirt, getting into the drier period is much more advantageous there.
Go ahead.
Who's gonna prepare the conditional use application that goes to the county?
So our consultant will, MSA will be preparing that with my oversight. The Redland Reservoir project, another reservoir, smaller than 152nd, of course. It's about 1.25 million gallons, 1.25 million gallons. Definitely a few less constraints or potential issues with this site because it's remote. We have reservoirs on it today. We still need to go through conditional use with the county to get it approved. But we foresee a shorter time frame with that work. Getting design completed, we did have the pre-app with the county for the conditional use already this week. Getting our design complete in July and starting construction in early fall or October.
Go ahead.
Is that true? Are we gonna start construction on it, that tank, before we do the 152nd?
It's very likely, yes. Yep.
So how many trees do we have to get rid of for that?
None.
Good answer.
Yeah. We removed some trees during the Butterfield
I mean,
project.
you did that. I was just wondering how much more would have to happen.
No, all the trees on our property are the ones that remain will stay. As far as phase 2 work, not a lot, although from a property standpoint, we're actively pursuing a couple other areas for properties, namely the Beaver Lake Pump Station area and the Bradley Road, as I mentioned, Bradley/Butterfield Lane, so that we can site pump stations in those areas. So both of those have lately had some fruitful dialogue with a couple of owners, and we're moving down a positive track there, I believe.
So does the Beaver Lake Pump Station then pump the entire grade to the school?
To the school?
Yeah, to the tank at the grade school.
Oh, Beaver Creek?
Yeah.
It would pump up the hill, yes, to Beaver Creek.
Yeah, so it pumps the entire grade.
Right.
Ooh, man, the pressure of the bottom out of it will be high.
Yeah.
There would be some head on that.
So there's a potential site on Bradley Road,
Yeah, near Bradley Road.
or is it gonna be off Bradley Road?
It'll be off Potter Road on a private lane, is where we're looking today. Which is quite close to Bradley. It's not too much farther than we had initially planned.
So it'll gravity down Butterfield to that and then pump up Bradley to the tank.
Right.
Yeah. How much storage do we have at Bradley Road outlet?
If I remember right, that's also gonna pump towards Oregon City.
Yep.
Pump station.
if we go all the way down to the bottom of the map there, yeah, the Beaver Lake pump station would pump via an existing 12-inch line up to Beaver Creek. And then from that point, part of the, possibly part of the analysis, the joint engineering study that's happening now, possibly, and any future discussion with Oregon City about water sharing. But yeah, certainly the ability will exist there. So I did include a schedule. Just wanted to note some of the revisions to the dates. A couple as mentioned already. The Butterfield project, because of some weather delays, we ended up, that went out a little farther, but that should all be wrapped up by end of April, if not sooner, depending on if we get
Getting weather in Monday through Wednesday.
And there is a plan to,
There is a plan
to
everybody and their brother's jumping on that.
Yeah. Glad you brought that up, because there's a high likelihood that we'll pave Potter Road next week.
That'd be cool.
If the weather can hold. The county's good with that.
Better put your order in for asphalt now, because everybody's waiting. The state, everybody's waiting for asphalt.
Favors have said they're ready to go.
Yeah, oh, I bet they are. Get in line at the plant.
152nd, as I mentioned, the construction timeline there. The pink cells that I highlighted on the schedule are ones where there were changes in duration and affecting the dates. Generally, we're still in pretty good shape for spending the bond proceeds. That 85%, it's kind of our next milestone, spending 85% within the first 3 years, which would be March of 2019. So I don't foresee an issue with that.
This is substantially different from the last one we see, so we just threw away the last one.
You can do what you desire. Yes. This is the current schedule. Yeah. Just a quick update, and then we're done on the finances overall for the backbone. And thanks to Fax for the numbers. If you look at the expenditures overall, as of December, we're about 8% actual spent, and then including any contracts that were obligated and executed, we're about 14% of the overall 22.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Any questions?
We're still on timeline to get the required amount of money obligated
Yes.
in the bond.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're now up to quarterly review through December 31st, 2016 by Carol Griffin.
I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties this evening, sorry about that.
We got it.
Look at this to me when I tried to, getting all ready before the meeting, and I was about ready to give up, and he did that to me too. There we go, okay. So, quarterly report, this is, we are now 75% of the way through the biennial budget. So all of these numbers are through activity that's been posted through December of 2016. The revenue is at 84.2%, so we are coming in ahead of the forecast, and that's based on a couple of things. The summer of 2015 was very, very dry and very, very warm, so we sold a lot of water that summer. We were also, if you recall, we were worried about water available in the river. When I prepared the budget ahead of that, we anticipated potential curtailment and not being able to pull as much water from the river. So I reduced my forecasted water sales for the August-October time period, when a lot of people are watering, by 10%. We ended up not having to do any required curtailment. We got information out there for voluntary conservation, and we ended up selling a lot more water in that time period. I also included the 10% reduction for this past summer that we got through, and we did sell less water this summer through that August-October cycle, but we were still more on par with what we would expect, not the 10% that I reduced the budget by. So here I have a different number. We have 82.4% of our budget based on, including transfers, and we do transfers into the general fund from the CRWSC activity fund. So as we sell the wholesale water, we start moving that money back into the general fund. And then we also have, we had some transfers in for some of the preliminary bond expenses. And so not all of those transfers have been recorded. But, so here's where you can see we have the water sales, the most significant portion of our revenue side. We have other operating expense, which would be late fees on customer bills and installation fees on new services, and then we have non-operating expense, and that includes the rent of the rest of this building and some other miscellaneous items. When we look at the expenditure side, we are kind of close to our 75%, which we would expect. We do have some things in the expenditure side that have been fully incurred for this time period, so so we won't march along exactly at this rate going forward. Certain things like our workers' compensation insurance has already been paid for the year, and our insurance we've booked, our regular liability insurance has been booked through for the whole year. So in personnel services, we're at 73.5%, materials and services just over 60%, and capital outlay, we're at about 51%. Capital outlay, remember, comes in big chunks, so that could easily be 75% in another month, depending upon what items are out there that we're purchasing that were budgeted items. So just to take a quick look at the other funds, the report that you have in your board packet is general fund only, but to look at where we are on the other funds, in the CIP fund, we're at 57%, but tonight a couple of projects were approved, so that's going to start moving that up pretty rapidly. In the revenue bond fund, we're at 85%. What we have left to pay, we've already paid the principal for this year, but we have the second half of the year interest to pay. The CIP bond construction fund, and this is what the backbone project that Adam was just talking about. The SEC reserve fund, at this point in the biennium, we're $282,000 over our projections. So again, a place that we put very conservative projections, and last year in particular, and this year is kind of continuing the trend, we have had more new accounts than we generally anticipate. And then in the CRWSC activity fund, this is that fund where kind of the revenue matches the expenditures because of the way we move the money. So we're at 69 and 68% on the activity fund. That's where we record our wholesale water, and then expenses for when we are doing shared services for Sunrise, that gets recorded in that fund.
I have a question about, so of the water revenue, what percentage of that 19 million is wholesale water versus regular water?
The wholesale water is in the CRWSC activity fund, so that's just the retail water.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So how much is the wholesale?
We are, we're tracking, the way we sell water to Sunrise is very steady as she goes, so we're tracking along the budget on that. So we are at about 75% of that budget. The way they currently draw water from us is pretty much an even amount every single month, because they can manage that by plugging in their other sources.
So the reason for the question is because of the agreement you working on Sunrise, I thought it would be helpful for everybody to know what that number is versus what giving that money up front is, so you get some idea of what you take in annually versus.
Right, and the wholesale water, I believe, is budgeted at around 750 to 800,000 a year. And like I said, it tracks just perfectly. So if you added, say, their share of the reservoir was $3 million, and you added that to their rates, it would be based on volumes, and it would increase that a little bit, but
Yeah,
not
right.
like $1 million a year,
Yeah, right.
which is what we would get if they
Right.
if they buy it.
I mean, that's, because that's the conversation.
And I can bring some analysis and some numbers of that when we talk again at the February board meeting, so that we can kind of see what
Well,
those,
depending on what you
those
work out,
differences are.
whether it's needed or not, so.
Yeah. So, the quarterly reports are going to be posted on the website tomorrow. I like to share with the board first, and then we'll get those updated on the website tomorrow. And any other questions, I'd be
Any
happy
other
to answer.
questions?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Carol. We are now up to the management report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your attention. The manager's report is agenda item 8, and I just want to highlight a couple things in the report. One, Commissioner Andrew was able to attend the Regional Water Providers Consortium board meeting. You're going to sense a theme here. There's a lot of budget discussion that's taking place. And so that was the primary focus of the consortium board meeting. The good news is the way the budget works out, even with not including Metro dues as part of the consortium at this point, is the CRW budget, or the CRW amount just slightly increases for this next year. So that was good news. I thought it was interesting that also at that board meeting there was actually 9 new board members out there. So Commissioner Anger was one of a number of freshmen as part of that class, I guess. A lot of turnover there. So anyway, so we also had an opportunity to listen to an update on the Washington Park Reservoir project that the City of Portland's working on. And boy, you love to hear about projects like 152nd and Redland versus trying to locate a reservoir at the bottom of the landslide. So it's an interesting project.
Any comments about their Equipto issue?
Yeah, you know, that was brought up, and
was it?
They confirmed that they found some, and that was where the discussion was stopped.
Yeah, oh,
yeah.
And Mr. Fish made sure that happened.
Yeah. Moving on to the Clackamas River Water Providers, that was also a significant budget discussion. They have not approved the budget. I think the bottom line is that we are trying to move forward on a couple of programs that CRW has a significant interest in as it relates to kind of looking at how snowpack and groundwater and all of that influence the flows in the river. So they're taking a little bit different approach and trying to look at that. But then also some work that our own Suzanne DiLorenzo has done a fair amount of work with as far as the hazardous algae blooms, algal blooms in the basin as well. So we'll continue with some projects there. One thing I will reference is included in your packet as one of the attachments, attachment A1, is a copy of the jointly developed brochure with Clackamas County Soil and Water Conservation, or Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District, about the field to forest, and so it's something that will be distributed to a number of the landowners to just kind of talk about how, you know, activities on the land do affect our water, so kind of creating that awareness. I did have an opportunity to meet with Clackamas Fire District 1, Chief Charlton, and so this board had already approved the idea of maybe having an interagency meeting with them where we have a couple commissioners, so Commissioner McNeil and Commissioner Soa were selected to represent us there. We're finally getting that meeting set up. So we'll probably look at the April time period. We don't have a specific date yet. We're waiting for them to get back to us on a date. But they have their 2 representatives picked, and they'll host the first one and we'll work on an agenda for that, and then see how that goes and how often we want to do that.
Let me interrupt you for
Yeah.
just a second. I'm supposed to go to the South Fork meetings, but they have had their meetings the same night as this meeting. But I noticed that they've been having them on Wednesday nights. You know, is that gonna be a permanent change?
That I don't,
Did you
but
find
we
out?
can find out.
Could you please just send me an email? Because I will go if.
Just a couple things to highlight with respect to emergency management. To note, we also included in the board packet some information if you're interested. There's an elected officials training on February 27th that if you're interested in attending, please let us know and we'll get you registered for that. It's going to be held in West Lynn. The other thing is, as part of my general manager goals, is we want to make sure that all of the CRW employees have completed the incident command system training. So everybody at the district has completed the IS 100, 200, and 700. So now we'll be working on the next phase, which is the additional specialized training for the different areas as well. One thing to note,
Are you gonna do 800?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
The, and probably some other ones.
Yeah, but 700 is beginning, 800 is the other
Right.
half of 700, so.
And I used to have the 800 certification and it expired. So, we've had a little snow and ice and other conditions that have wreaked some havoc in the basin, and so I just want to let the board know that we have submitted our information to the county, and the county's coordinating the individual damage assessments where we can get some FEMA help me out, Don. It's Office of Emergency Management, I guess.
Yeah,
The dollars there. So, so we provided our estimates. The county collects all that and see if we qualify for some reimbursement and funding. And if we qualify, that's a good thing. I think it's up to 75% reimbursement. So, obviously, some safety items. We just want to make sure we're working to provide a safe environment. Some stuff about chemicals. I think one thing I would note is we did have a OSHA safety consultation, and so in that we're identified some things that I think are relatively easy to address. There was one project dealing with some railing issues around the water treatment plant that will take us a little bit longer to address, but is all pretty much doable. So ended up, I think, being a positive experience for our staff and working with our insurance company as well, agent as well. So one thing I want to just touch on real quick is we are approaching the Oregon legislative sessions, the Oregon legislature is in session. And so one of the things that we do is get updates from the Special Districts Association of Oregon. Also, Suzanne DiLorenzo's chair of the Oregon Water Utility Council, and so they hear a number of different activities of what's going on as it relates to different legislation and so on. I think one of the things I want to make the board aware of is on March 3rd, there's going to be an update by SDAO's governmental affairs staff that will be held in Wilsonville, where it's a breakfast, you get the updates on what's taking place in the legislature. So if you're interested in going, please contact Karen.
What time was that?
It's in the morning, I think, oh boy, I think it's
7:30.
7:30 normally is when they start. It's normally
Three
about
to
a
nine
2-hour event, hour and a half,
Went to
2
it
hour event.
last year.
So anyway, I want to make you aware of that. Also, one of the big priority bills for Special Districts Association, and it is of interest to CRW, is this whole recreational immunity. And Commissioner So is very familiar with this legislation. I think worked on it when he was a state legislator. Unfortunately, I think as we have talked about previously, the Supreme Court recently came out with a ruling that put into jeopardy how employees of public agencies, they don't have that immunity that the agency would have. And so SDAO, along with a number of other folks, are trying to pursue a fix this legislative session for that. They're making an all-out push. Obviously, you can imagine this has significant consequences for some of the parks district and all of that, but it's also irrigation districts. We ourselves have taken action as a result of that to close certain facilities down at the Riverside Park, and so it raises some real concern. And so one of the things I wanted to talk to the board about is a little bit about what your expectations are. This is one of those issues that I would, SDAO is asking all the different districts to actually chime in and support and indicate their support for the fix legislation, that the bill that SDAO has helped to get introduced. We can do that a variety of ways. We can bring back a formal resolution if you wanted, or we can just do an informal vote, or you can tell me that you don't want to do this. And so I'm kind of leaving it up to you on how you may or may not want to approach this, but I'm just looking for some
When you're
direction.
saying a formal resolution to go to where?
In support of.
Yeah, it's just it would be a
okay.
formal resolution. Actually, SDAO has language
Okay.
that we could use, but obviously we wouldn't get that until your March meeting. And so, or you could just, direct me to support, to indicate our support to SDAO.
I mean, I feel pretty strongly about this. That the agency is immune from lawsuits, but not the individuals. They can turn around and, as a former public employee, I'm horrified that I could personally be sued when I'm doing my job. If I don't do my job properly, then it's up to the management of that department to fire me or whatever, but to be sued by an outside person when I'm on my job is unacceptable as far as I'm concerned.
Sued personally.
Sued personally, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Well, so how they get this to happen is that as an employer, if the person's doing their job, you need to defend them.
You need to
So-
defend them, so the
that's
whole
how they
immunity
get to
goes
the-
out the window.
That's how they get to the district or city or whoever. So,
Right, so where are the League of Oregon Counties and the
yeah,
cities?
so everybody.
Is everybody on board here?
Yeah, this is.
Okay, because they're in the suit too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, the lawsuit involved the city of Portland, so.
Did it?
So if you bring a resolution back to us for the March meeting.
So can I ask maybe a different,
Okay,
so
sure.
can I ask that maybe the board, maybe there's a motion and a second to direct the general manager to bring back a resolution in support of this, but in the meantime, I can communicate to SDAO that we would be in support of the fixed.
Why don't you craft a motion? And we
Is
can
that
second
okay?
it. I mean, you have some energy here.
If you're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I can
Trying to
do
figure
whatever
out,
you want.
I hate to put it in the wrong thing,
So I move that CRW supports SDAO's recommendation for improving the immunity clause.
Are we retaining the immunity?
Yeah, to
Retaining.
support legislation to fix
To fix
the
the-
recreational immunity.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
And I'll still bring back a resolution in
Okay.
March, though, is that
Yeah.
That sounds good.
part of that? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right, a couple more things real quick. Some communication items. One, Joe mentioned the customer billing insert. I closed actually as A2 is a copy of that, and one of the things I will highlight as part of that is we are, in addition to having some information on our new commissioner, we've also included information about some of the water system improvement projects, and so it's just a narrative text that was popular about today. And then you also have received a copy of the monthly report, given the timing of our meeting, something that we handed out here. It again is a quick dashboard-like type of thing that you can review at your leisure. For me personally, I'll be attending the SDAO the Special Districts Association Board Conference tomorrow through Sunday. Just at the Portland Marriott. I believe Commissioner Clowney was there today, and Commissioner Andrew will be there attending some sessions tomorrow, so we'll see you there. I think I did officially get sworn in as the board member of the Special Districts Association of Oregon yesterday at the board meeting there.
Great.
And so I'm officially I'm official now, I guess. So, and then the last item for you this evening is we do have on the agenda an executive session scheduled for after this meeting, and we will be meeting in an executive session after this meeting. And that concludes my report.
Okay. The only other thing I was going to add was the part of the SDAO meeting that I'm going to is a 2-hour workshop on emergency management, which is why I was hesitant to sign up for this training, because I felt like I was already going to be spending 2 hours doing at an emergency management workshop, and that seemed like it was enough. It looks like it's going to be a long. So anyway, I will, if there is time, I will give a brief report back at some future time. And so the only thing left on our agenda is, well, the next item is public comment. Do we have any public comment out there? Looks like mostly.
Nobody
Okay.
signed up.
And commissioner business reports and reimbursements, I don't think we need to do anything on that. So is there anything else for the good of the order? Okay, in that case, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.